Hi there, friends. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. This is anniversary week for us, 3 years and going strong, and we're so glad you're with us this entire week. We're going to be celebrating the whole week. We're just going to take the whole week and enjoy it because 3 years is great because of you. You make the show what it is. So thank you so very much. We dedicated the show to you from the very beginning. You've never disappointed us once, so keep it going for the next 30 years. Could you do that? I think you can. I'm going to give you the number, and then Jerry's going to put forth the topic. I know it's going to really resonate with all of us, especially as dads, moms, grandmothers, grandfathers. We're talking about children today and how are we protecting them. So here's the number, 833-288-3986. Jerry?
Well, hi, Debbie. Good to be with you again.
Hello.
And great to have you, our listeners, tuned in. And thank you so much. And the show team, Rich, Matt, Jeff, and everyone at EWTN. And thank you, affiliates, for carrying the program as well. And yeah, as Debbie said, we want to talk about our kids today. And how do we preserve their innocence, their innocent minds and hearts? And here's the deal. If you watch the news at night, you don't even have to watch the news. You know what's going on. It's been nearly a month, actually less than a month, I think, since the last fatal mass school shooting, okay? There seemed to be a senseless tragedy right after another in our nation. There are so many horrific things going on in the world. We have terrorism, kidnappings, human trafficking, gender confusion. The list is endless. So as a parent, these can be, of course, teaching moments, but that has to be at the appropriate time for your child. And maybe at other times you want to just say, honey, let's not watch that. Let's not watch. Let's say a prayer for that, but let's not watch it. And then, of course, if there's a school shooting or something, they're going to hear about that because they're going to have ramped up safety precautions in school and so forth. So how do you just kind of, as a parent, look at their precious little minds and hearts and just make sure that they're not plunged into fear or worried about that, or just still maintain their joy and their zest for life? Does that sound kind of on the mark, Debbie?
Oh, yeah. And as you're speaking, it's just getting more and more disturbing for me because I can't even imagine what it would feel like to raise small children in this day and age, what I call this crazy world, because you have the schools telling you one thing, you have the society telling you another thing, and you're trying to have the rules and guidelines in your own home as a Christian home, and that's competing with what's going on in the world. And then you have these school shootings that since, I believe start of 2018, there's been over 20, Jerry, and that's really, really disturbing. But when they become such a regular occurrence and on the nightly news on a regular basis, is it causing us to be desensitized a bit? I mean, and just say, oh, well, this is the way life is. Well, no. How do we change that? How do we fix it, especially in our families? How do we protect the minds and hearts of our children, keep their innocence as long as possible before they have to face all of these things? Or maybe you're thinking, no, I'm going to prepare my children at home so that they're ready to go into the world and face what's happening. Let's talk about it. Let's have a real discussion. This is a very alarming, disturbing time we live in. And it's good that we have these conversations because maybe we're going to be given some tools that we can use right away in our homes. Here's the number, 833-288-3986. Please don't sit this out. Please help us out with this one. Jerry, you can hear I'm very passionate about it because I remember the days when I used to go outside and didn't come home till 8:30 at night, and I was playing outside and going to neighbors' yards and walking the streets and having a great time. You can't do that anymore. And it's really frustrating, I think, for parents. And let's talk about it.
Yeah. As moms and dads and grandparents and extended family, the ones you care about the most are the young ones in your lives, and they are going to be impacted by the world around them. We can't what was that movie many years ago, The Boy in the Bubble or something? And,
Boy in the Plastic Bubble. John
Travolta,
wasn't it?
Was it? Yeah. Well, that was because he had some kind of an illness, if I recall correctly.
Right.
But in this regard, we don't want to put our kids in a bubble. We can't say, well, honey, you can never go out the front door of the house because there's just too much bad stuff out there. We got to let them live their lives. And become young men, young women, adults, and go out and make a positive difference amidst all of the crazy nonsense that's going on. But as they're going through that growing up process and developing, and they're not jaded yet, when they're young, and their minds and hearts are so innocent and so right before God. And so when these things happen, do you, as a family, do you sit down and say, well, honey, I know that at school today you heard about this or that or the other thing. Let's talk it out as a family. And that way, Debbie, I think that kids can see they're not only getting sort of the sterile, official, sanitized, this is how we're going to do things at school, but as a family, you can have a heart conversation about it,
Right.
and really delve into it and ask the kids, how are you processing this? How are you feeling about this? What do you think about this? And what do you think we can do maybe to help make things better? So I think families can play a huge part in this, but it's really going to be specific to each, the age of each child, the disposition, and so many other factors.
Well, and schools do for the most part, do a fabulous job at trying to cover everything and keep kids up to date and age appropriate. But you can't depend on the schools to take care of the deeper understanding of things, especially when it relates to our Christianity. And that's very, very important. I've often said this: please don't put your kids in even religious education or any type of school setting and expect them to take care of everything. It has to be done in the homes, because you are the primary catechist. You are the ones, the parents, the grandparents, aunts and uncles. You guys are forming the children at home, and that's very important, because that's how they cope when they go out there into the world. You can't expect the schools to take care of that. And I say that often, Jerry, because sometimes I feel like when we know that there's another authority that's watching out over our children, we think, okay, everything's covered. Well, that's not necessarily true. It really does have to begin in the home. So phone lines are already lighting up. You got a lot to say about this. Please take advantage of the open phone line that's there for you at 833-288-3986. The topic today is protecting the innocent minds and hearts of our children amidst this crazy world. What do you think, Jerry? I think we covered it.
I think we set the table there. Now it's yours, as always, to take and run with it. Take Two Family, 833-288-3986. What is your approach to this? You know best for your kids, and there are people listening who are wondering just how to approach this. You're going to help
them. Third Millennium Media presents Debbie Georgianni.
The world tells us not to be merciful, and we as Catholic Christians are called to take a step back and look at it in a different way. We must practice mercy, especially if we want to receive mercy.
Debbie Georgianni, co-host of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio, wants to visit your parish retreat or conference. Invite Debbie Georgianni today online at thirdmillenniummedia.com.
60 on 10 with Monsignor Charles Pope.
The fourth commandment, honor your father and your mother. This commandment enjoins on us as young children not only obedience to their parents, and even older children great honor for them, but also gratitude for all of our elders, teachers, employers, and leaders. It also directs citizens to a proper love of our country. So it's a rich commandment. And it also puts great requirements on those who are in those positions to be worthy of the honor that is due them. This commandment is fundamentally given to us by God, because without respect for our elders, there can be no teaching, and we cannot hand on the wisdom of previous generations. This commandment is rich, and it is for us. The fourth commandment, honor your father and your mother.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. And the programs just keep on coming throughout the day. We have Cresta in the afternoon, weekdays at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And this afternoon, Al Cresta is joined by Suzanne Schulte. She is going to be talking on the North Korea Summit. And Greg Custona, he is bridging the faith-science divide. So you can always get very important topics and conversation on Cresta in the afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on many of these EWTN radio affiliates.
I'm looking forward to it. Love Al Cresta, does a great job. Okay, so first up is Rose in Buffalo, New York, listening on the Station of the Cross. Hi, Rose. Thanks so much for getting in early, and welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. This is definitely a topic that I'm very passionate about as well. I'm considered a millennial parent. I'm 29 years old, and I have two kids. I have a 6-week-old, and I have a 2-year-old. And, I would say that I'm really afraid of the state of the world, but at the same time not afraid. And when I grew up, my parents sheltered me. And, I wasn't allowed to see R-rated movies. I really even wasn't allowed to, hang out at people's houses when there were, people that they didn't know, things like that. And I think as a kid, I thought it was really unfair. But now that I'm a parent, I really want to take that. We want to take that approach, my husband and I, in raising our kids. We personally don't feel like kids should know too much about the world, I guess, that they should have their innocence preserved, especially with, the school shootings and things that are going on. And, we really think that it's really important to, form their consciences, the best way that we possibly can up until, they're old enough to make their own decisions. And that's why we decided to shelter, I guess, quote unquote, the best we can. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to send them to Catholic school. We're going to try really hard to shelter them from, they're not going to really go on. We're going to try to keep them away from social media, try and keep them away from certain TV shows, things like that. I don't know how it's going to work, but that's really important to us to keep us, to preserve their innocence, like you guys said. And, I don't feel like I missed out on anything, I guess, maybe as a kid, because you don't know. It reminds me of Dr. Ray, who says, your kids are never going to understand until they're 25 and they're old enough, they don't really understand. So they're not going to understand what our methods are, just like I didn't. But now that I'm a parent and I'm an adult, I would say I'm very protective. I'm not like the helicopter parent that they talk about, millennials are, but I really want to try and be purposeful about that.
Right. Well, Rose, it sounds like you and your husband are in agreement, and that's a wonderful thing. The other thing, too, is it sounds like you and your husband are willing to tackle those hard conversations if and when your children come to you and say, Mom, what is this? I hear that there's, 20 school shootings in, the year so far. You're going to have those conversations. You're not, obviously, you're probably not going to avoid them, but you're going to have them where you are conducting them and you are giving the information that is necessary for your children, and you know your children best. You know which child's going to be able to handle things, I had 2 boys, and they were vastly different in personalities. One you could tell something to, and they would just fluff it off. The other one would deeply absorb it and kind of mull it around in his head and over again. That was the way he was. And so you know how your children are. You know how to talk to them, and it sounds like you're going to tackle those hard conversations at home first. And to me, I think that's a great recipe for success for your children, because then, I think this is just my personal opinion. When parents avoid conversations, that's when I think it can be problematic, because then the children do go out. They turn outward and listen to their friends, or they listen to the world or whatever and try to get information. But it sounds like you and your husband are going to tackle it at home. So way to go. Jerry, what do you think?
Can't add anything more than that. I like what you just said, though, Debbie, that I think it is important for, we always say parents are the first educators of their kids, and you know them better than anybody. You know their unique hearts, their unique minds, their qualities, their characteristics, how they're going to react to everything. So I really do believe the conversation really primarily has to take place between parents. Obviously, schools and other institutions and so forth are going to present their own like requirements and guidelines and safety regulations and all of that. But even those things, I think, have to be brought home and not dismissed, but digested, by the entire family together and work through that. Because kids look to parents. They're looking to parents for guidance, and they can't be just told a bunch of things and, be expected to run with them. So, yeah, I agree with you, Deb.
Yeah. And you said you're going to send your children to Catholic school. I would say the same thing. You know, I love Catholic school. I love public school. I love charter schools. But don't depend on the schools to have those conversations. It sounds like you're going to do it at home. Are we right, Rose? You're going to start at home?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's unfortunate that, you know, I think a lot of Catholic schools aren't really even as Catholic as we would like them to be also. So there's definitely going to be, you know, conversations that have to be done. I mean, I went through 12 years of Catholic school, and I really didn't learn about my faith until I started listening to Catholic radio. So,
wow.
You know, that's kind of an idea of what, you know, what they just really scratched the tiny bit of the surface. So, you know, it really is important. And I'm glad that I'm equipped with that, you know, that my parents didn't have, you know, Catholic radio wasn't as prevalent when I was growing up. So my parents didn't have that knowledge. And now I'm so glad that I have it, that I'm able to pass it on. And now my parents as grandparents have it. So then they're able to pass it on. And, you know, so obviously there's a plug for how good Catholic radio is, that it just, that's where I learned most of my faith. And now I'm able to pass it on to my kids. And I hope that they grow up and that they are able to pass it on to their children. And, you know, but who knows in this world? I mean, it's so hard to be in the world and not of the world. So that's
right.
A very difficult thing, I think, to be in. You know, I fall into the trap, so does everybody else. So it's difficult, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, it is. It's maybe becoming a little more difficult, but with God's grace, all things are possible. Thank you, Rose. Thanks for sharing those great insights with us here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. And thanks for the plug for the Station of the Cross, your local Catholic station. And I was listening this morning. Guadalupe Radio Network is having their spring or summer pledge drive. And if you do listen on the Station of the Cross, I know that they had a wonderful spring fund drive. They still had a little bit to make up, and I'm not sure if they're at their goal yet. So anyone listening on the Station of the Cross, be sure and call up and help them out. And wherever you are, your local Catholic radio station always needs you with your prayers and your financial help. So please be generous so that we can have conversations like this, conversations that really help us in real life. Debbie,
right.
I know you agree
well,
with
we
that.
want Rose's children when they grow up to benefit from Catholic radio. So we need Catholic radio going strong. So thank you, Rose, for that beautiful, kind words. And thank you for calling up during anniversary week. We appreciate that. Okay, we're going to let you go because you got 2 kids to take care of. And we're going to go to Maura in New Jersey. Hi, Maura, on Sirius XM 130. Welcome.
Hi, guys. Thanks so much for taking my call. My husband and I both work in public school, so I got to keep it quick. I'm on my lunch. And our children go to Catholic school, and we have 4, 10, 7, 5, and 6-month-old. He's not in school. But to share with you and give a plug for the book I sold.
Say it again. We're losing you, Maura.
Yeah, more. Your connection is not good, Maura. Can you shift over maybe a couple feet from where you are? Or?
How about now?
Yeah, that is better. That is better, yeah.
Okay, good. The Marian option. I'm going to read it this summer. I think that's the answer for kids and for the world they're living in, and to give them the power of the rosary, and hosting things like family rosary nights where you get together with other faith-filled Catholic families and you pray together the rosary and teach the children that they have the greatest weapon of our times right in their hands, and that's the rosary, and to pray for these people who are not well, who are doing horrible things, and to pray for the people in their circle, to love them and to bring them back into a healthier place so that they're not hurting others. And that's really all I got for you guys. But
well, that's every. Yeah, that's everything, Maura, though, because Padre Pio would agree with that. One of the greatest spiritual weapons is the rosary. I love that idea. I think that would be great for so many families, especially starting up tomorrow we're going to be talking about summer plans. What great summer plans to have family rosary night and have kids come around and share, to be vocal about what they're thinking about, what they're feeling, because when they get those feelings out and they turn them over to God, it builds trust into God. It's amazing. So the effects of that are just going to go on in the families. Maura, I love it. Way to go. Thank you so much for sharing that.
All right. Thanks, Maura, for joining us. We had a line open there. It's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. I'm Jerry Usher along with Debbie Georgiani and you. And you always drive the show, and your takes really inspire and inform and edify. Your insights, your wisdom, your lived experiences are so valuable to this program. So grab that open phone line there, and once you get on, you'll have your opportunity to share and inspire at 1-833 288-3986. If you've just tuned in, today we're discussing how to protect innocent minds and hearts. And what we mean by that is everywhere in the world, you can look out your window, you walk down the street, kids go to school, you watch the news, you go to the grocery store. No matter where we go in the world today, there are challenges, there are dangers, threats. Mm-hmm. It's only been a few weeks since the last fatal mass school shooting. Mm-hmm. So as parents, you're trying to raise your kids to be realistic and know that the world can be tough out there. But at the same time, some of these things can traumatize. Some of these things traumatize me, Debbie. So, I just want to, hear from you parents, about how you kind of circle the wagons as a family, get together, talk about these things, try to make sense of them if there's any way to do that, but then move forward with peace and confidence and joy, knowing that the Lord is with you in your lives. 833-288-3986. Let us hear from what you have to say on this.
Okay, so now my curiosity's got the best of me here. Kathy in Denver, Colorado on Denver Catholic Radio, you just dropped off the line. Call back because you have some interesting comments. We'd love to add them to the discussion. So if you're listening, Kathy, and you can, call back if you can do that. Okay, Joe in Dearborn, Michigan on Ave Maria Radio. Hi, Joe. Thanks for waiting and welcome to Take Two.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. Hello. What I have to say is just very quick. I think that a lot of, there's no good choice, public schools, private schools. There's no one that's perfect. A lot of the problems are the same across the board. And I just would say much of what goes on, you can preempt it with family prayer. I wholeheartedly agree with the rosary and that the other caller suggested, but just a family prayer where you prayerfully discuss the things that are going on in the world, and the children will help them cope and give them a perspective as they on the matter as they pray about it and hear what hear your prayer and pray themselves, and I think that will help. And starting young, make it a regular routine. Starting young.
Joe,
so that's all I have to say.
Joe, before you hang up, real quickly, I so agree with you, but I want to say something, and this is the reality of it. I was a religious education director for many, many years, and I used to take a poll because I was actually writing my thesis paper for my graduate degree, and I was taking a poll of the 660 students that I had, and I can tell you, Joe, I could count on my maybe fingers and toes of how many families out of 660 prayed on a regular basis. It was very,
I believe you. I believe you.
Yeah, it was very sad. They would do it once in a great while, maybe once a week, maybe once a month, maybe sometimes just spontaneously. But for some reason, Joe, we've lost it as a priority, and it should be the first thing we do. Go ahead.
I see there's certain families in the neighborhood that I know. I don't know if it's nightly or weekly. I don't know how often they do it, but I'm telling you, their kids are different. I'm not talking about my kids. I'm telling you, their kids are different. They're solid, man. They're very, very solid compared to the rest of the world. I'm talking about other people's kids here. So maybe it just needs to be promoted more. So I agree with you. So it's not. Yeah. So,
well, and real quickly, Joe, to your point about prayer. I mean, when we get together, whether we pray as an individual in the quiet of our bedroom, in church, at Mass, pray the Rosary, whatever it is, these practices and disciplines are not simply just for the purpose of external, certainly we want to be praising God and offering our thanks to God and all of that, but these are intended to help us develop our hearts, our spirits, and even our minds. We read in 1 Corinthians 2:16, who has known the mind of the Lord as to instruct him, but we have the mind of Christ. And Joe and Debbie, if we have the mind of Christ developed and cultivated and strengthened through frequent prayer, then that is going to help us have the ability to survey and break down a lot of these things that are going on and have the right moral judgment and be able to, parents be able to explain it to their kids, and kids maybe not be so, disturbed, have their peace disturbed by some of these things, not to say that we don't, not to say that we don't take precautions, but having the mind of Christ, as 1 Corinthians 2:16 says. So, Joe, I think you make a great point. Prayer is a very important part of this.
It's essential. Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for taking the time and imparting that to us. It really helped the discussion today. God bless you. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Okay. Who's up next?
Well, we got in about 45 seconds.
Uh-oh,
Rich is going to serenade us in about 45 seconds. So what we can do is just reset the topic here. It's talking about protecting innocent minds and hearts. How do you discuss or maybe not discuss with your kids things like terrorism or gender? Even things like gender confusion or shootings in schools. Some of these things that are really, you look back, Debbie, and I think when I was in high school, I can probably speak for you too. To hear of something like one of these things, I mean, it would have been like global news forever. Because these things just didn't happen. So
we never had lockdowns or anything like that, did you? We never did.
No, not at all.
In fact, we had an open campus. We used to come and go. It was really very freeing. Now it's very different. So, this is a great conversation. I hope we're all learning something, and we're going to just maybe change direction and do things differently in our homes from this point forward. So the number to call when we come back from the break is 833-288-3986. This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We'll be right back.
Father Mitch Pacwa.
Sin does not unite people, doesn't bring them together. Sin causes division and divides people up.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
Hello, this is Janet Morana of Priests for Life with Pro-Life Update. Juneteenth is a little-known holiday, yet it is dear to African Americans. Juneteenth marks the official end of slavery in all parts of the United States. It is celebrated on June 19th. More than 150 years later, however, an entire class of Americans is still treated as nothing more than property. Babies living in their mother's wombs are regarded by our laws as non-persons. It's a tragedy and a disgrace. Juneteenth reminds us that the recognition and protection of basic human rights can take a long time, but it also reminds us that American society can change so as to honor its founding principles. Join us here at Priests for Life in working for the day when we can celebrate a holiday commemorating the end of the most devastating and dehumanizing practice in slavery, namely abortion. This is Janet Morana on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Podcasting is an easy way to automatically receive your favorite EWTN programs on your mobile device. Visit EWTN.com/podcast and enjoy your favorite EWTN shows on your mobile phone right now.
It's June 12th, and today the Church honors St. John of Sahagun. As a priest, he could read people's hearts, compelling them to make good confessions. His sermons against sinful living drew the wrath of many, but also converted others to better lives. St. John died in 1479. And on this day in 1993, Pope John Paul II encouraged perpetual adoration of the Eucharist. He said, "It is the horizon and the goal of the entire proclamation of Christ's gospel."
I'm Brian Patrick.
And I'm Gloria Purvis. Tomorrow, Father Joseph Anthony Kress.
And we discuss a new film on the encyclical Humanae Vitae, Morning Glory, on EWTN Radio.
Now back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Always great that you're a part of the program here. Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. The show does have a replay at midnight Eastern Time. So twice a day, noon and midnight Eastern on EWTN Radio, many of these affiliates, and a best of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on Saturdays at noon Eastern Time. Back to your calls about protecting the innocent minds and hearts of our young people. Cody is next, and Cody is driving through Michigan listening to the program. Hi, Cody. Thank you for joining us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Thank you for taking my call, and I'm sorry if I lose you. I'm in a really bad area. I'm actually a truck driver, and I'm a first-time listener, first-time caller.
Welcome.
And I actually thought of something while I was on hold is we're preaching to protect our children from the evils of the world, but we elected a bad example as president in the United States. We elected a man who's done some very inappropriate things. And how, as a father, do I tell my son, well, you can't be like that because you won't amount to anything, but then this guy's the president? I mean, what do I do?
Well,
okay, you want to go first, Jared?
Yeah, I'm just offer a couple thoughts, Cody.
Yeah.
First of all, I would try and explain to your child, look, there are 300 million. I mean, and a figure like that may not, mean that much to him. 300 million people in this country. Out of those 300 million, X number of million vote, and there are people who think differently about these things. And then you could just take, and we can look back at the previous president as well. And I'm sure there were a lot of parents explaining to their kids, hey, honey, this president, he's our president because he's in the office and we respect the office. But what he just did in this particular instance really is maybe against our faith or was rude or antagonistic or nasty or something. So I don't know, Debbie, do you have any thoughts to add to that?
Yeah,
Because
I do,
there's going to be, be a real hodgepodge of things, no matter who is in an office such as that, I think, anyway.
Right. Well, and I just want to put that all together with other things that other departments, if you will, in the world that we look up to, Cody. I would not. This is personally. I'm just saying this. I would not recommend to our children to hold politicians, sports, professional sports athletes, actors in Hollywood, anybody like that, or even people that are just successful on social media or something of that nature. I wouldn't hold them as the role models. Our role models have to go back to starting, of course, with Jesus, Mary, the saints. It has to go back to that. If we hold these other people up in high esteem like that and think, well, that's what we're trying to be like, well, we're going to be sadly disappointed because everybody's got faults. Everybody's got sins. We can find very good things about everybody in high positions, and we can find very bad things about everybody in high positions, including sports athletes and stuff. I mean, my goodness, it's unbelievable what's out there. So if it were me, Cody, I would direct your children to the saints, especially obviously Mary and Jesus is our ultimate role model. Because otherwise, if you put them in man, you're going to get disappointed. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying, but when I was growing up, I always looked up to the president because he's the leader of the free country, or the free world. And, my teachers would always say, you have to do good things to become president. And then you grow up, and that's not the case.
Right.
And you bring up Obama, and there are things that he did that, were not right. But it seems like there's just a lot of bad things out there about our current president, and it's kind of scary because as Christians, we were the large part in him getting elected. If you look at the numbers, and it's like if you're electing this person, you're condoning that behavior.
What, right, but Cody,
I'm conflicted.
Right, yes, but Cody, can I just ask him not to get into a political discussion, but are you just talking about the person that sits in the office of the presidency, or are you talking about policy? Because a lot of the policies that have come forth, from my understanding, I've seen a lot of Catholic blogs going around that it's very pro-life, a lot of the policies that are being put forth. So are you talking about the person, or are you talking about what the fruits that are coming out of it? Or are you putting both together? Because
I'm talking about
the person.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay.
I'm talking about the person. Like, you could do a bunch of good things and still be a bad person.
Well, but I have to tell you something. I'm a history buff, Cody, and I got to tell you, pretty much everybody in the whole entire history books had some checkered past. There wasn't a single perfect person other than Jesus that I ever found in the history books. including some of our first saints who started off, remember Paul, who started off persecuting or being out there persecuting Christians or helping to persecute Christians. So, I mean, we're flawed. We're flawed by just the fall of what happened in the Garden of Eden. We're flawed, Cody. So I think we also have to pray for people to be the best they can be. That's why Matthew Kelly writes these books about trying to get people to be the best version of themselves. The more we get people to rise to a higher standard, then more good is going to come out of them. They may not never be perfect, but they're going to be better. They're going to be authentically themselves in a better way. So I hope that helps. I mean, I hope I wasn't rambling. Jerry, you know where I was going with this, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and Cody, the only other thing I would add is, you mentioned that when you were growing up, and it was probably the same with me too. I didn't hear it put that way, but you said you were told, people have to do good things and be good people or whatever you put it in order to get to an office like that. Maybe that was true back then to a greater extent than it is today. But I really believe today it's largely money that buys political office. It's ideology. It's who can get out to their word the most. It's really not so much about principles and morality and so forth. Would you agree with that?
That's what I'm seeing, and that's why we need to, as a society. I mean, because you got to look at it. Christians are the number one religion in the United States. We're also the largest voting bloc. We got to do better. We got to do better.
Well, but
we got to elect someone that's going to do better for our children.
But Cody, unfortunately, the nice guy or woman doesn't win. They chew them up and spit them out, and they persecute them and nail them to the cross. That's what's happened to a lot of great senators and people that have risen up who are very pro-life, very pro-Catholic, and they get chewed up and spit out by the world. I mean, that's the reality of it. So what we need to do is change the culture, starting one family at a time, fight for our families, start, like Mother Teresa said, start in our families. And then you're right, that voting bloc that we have, the Christian voting bloc, will be more powerful because we have a solid foundation at home. And in fact, Scripture talked about that this past weekend, Jerry.
Yeah. Thanks, Cody. That's probably all we can do with that right now on the air, but feel free to email us if you would like to further the conversation. It's take2@EWTN.com, and that goes for anybody. Feel free to email us anytime. Talking about protecting innocent minds and hearts from just a lot of the really sometimes horrific things that go on in the world. How do you handle that as a family? We're going to go to Chris next. Oh, I'm sorry, Kathy. Chris, hang on. You're right after Kathy, who was on the line and dropped off. So we do have Kathy back in Denver listening on Denver
Kathy.
Catholic Radio. Hi, Kathy. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi. I would have to tell you, I was ready to just kind of give up calling back, and then you said, Kathy, call back. And I'm like, okay. I'll do that.
Good. I'm so glad you did, Kathy. Thank you so much. So what's on your mind about this? What do you think?
Well, I just want to reiterate what you said for sure about schools. There, in our area, I'm in Jefferson County, and the stuff that they teach our kids in school goes way outside education, especially in the area of human sexuality, or they just call it sex ed. So there are huge dangers. Planned Parenthood is infiltrating school systems to form our kids. So just people have to be very aware of that and not let, the schools just know what's going on in your school for sure. But I wanted to say that I was working with my neighbor's son at the end of the school year, and one of the projects was on bullying. And one of the things that we found was that in the 90s, out of 15 mass school shootings, 12 of the shooters had a history of bullying. And so part of the project was, hey, what can you do about it? And we found several organizations, mostly started by kids, that have become a nationwide effort to start clubs in your own school. There's an app that's called Sit With Me that lets you find other kids in your school that don't have anybody eat lunch with. And really, I think really good things that kids can do right now. And so when I'm working with my kids about problems, we try to look at, well, what are the causes? And I think when you can empower your kids to do something about it, praying, absolutely. But to actually, that guy was talking about presidential elections, and my thing has always been you start at the grassroots where you can really make an impact. And I think kids then, they lose some of the fear when they feel like they can do something about it. So that would be my recommendation. It's what we know as Christians, treat everybody nicely, but,
right.
This goes into making other people aware of it, maybe stepping in and saying, I'm not just going to walk by it, or I'm not going to observe it. And I thought it was really enlightening to me that how much that particular thing, the bullying that, everybody sees goes on, and how much an impact you can save somebody's life, whatever.
Well, and
that's
Kathy,
what I want to say.
I love that, because right at the neighborhood level, the community level, kids can be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I love that. When you empower children to be able to make a difference, you're changing the culture one neighborhood at a time. And I think that's very, very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that, because if we don't get to the root of these problems, they're just going to keep happening. And, just real quickly, back to Cody. If you're listening, Cody, and drive safely. You're a truck driver, drive safely. Cody, I just wanted to say, you're not the only one that wants to bring up discussions about what's happening in our families and even in our communities, how everybody has different political views, differences, different feelings, and we can't really talk to one another. There's not a common denominator. We're kind of going at it with one another. And I think that warrants, Jerry, for us to put it on the calendar to have a discussion coming up in the near future where we talk about this, the differences of feelings of what's going on in the world. How can we talk to one another and find a common solution that we can work towards instead of just arguing our points. So Kathy, what you're saying too is bringing up different ideas that I'm having as well, that the more we have these conversations, the more we can include everyone and the more we can make a difference. I love it, Kathy. I'm glad you called back. What do you think, Jerry?
I'm glad you called back too, and so many good points there. And I had not heard about some of these things like the the app where you can find somebody to sit with at lunch. Technology is bringing about all kinds of great things like this. I would say I would wish that weren't necessary. Of course, I wish that kids would all be equally nice to one another. We know that doesn't happen, as Kathy referenced the bullying as well. So, Kathy, you've shared a lot of good, insightful things. Is there anything else you wanted to kind of tag on here at the end before we let you go?
No, I just appreciate that you guys do what you do. It was a blessing. I had to pick up my kids this morning and drive through the mountains, and that's why I had the radio on. So I'm glad God works in great ways, doesn't he?
Oh, yes. Amen to that, Kathy. Thank you so much, Kathy. We appreciate it, and God bless you. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Okay. Who's next? Chris? Chris in Sterling Heights, Michigan on Ave Maria Radio. Look at Ave Maria Radio go. Hi, Chris. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. I'm 66, and my kids are almost out of the house in their 30s or almost 30. But I just wanted to share, dare I say, some wisdom from when they were growing up as little kids. We really made sure that we knew who our neighbors were. I still see this kind of silo mentality sometimes in neighborhoods where everybody's just to themselves. And that's dangerous. I got to know a neighbor who was a security guard at a nearby prison, and he warned me about this one guy. He didn't like his profile. And he said to keep your kids away from him. And that was a wake-up call for me, and I did. And on the other hand, we got to be real good friends with other neighbors that were just kitty corner from us, and we got to a point where we actually did pray the rosary together, and it was beautiful. And we knew everything that was going on in that block and the adjacent block. We just knew where the safe zones were and where the not so safe zones were. So I just wanted to share that. It seems like a no-brainer, but I still see some silo kind of living lifestyles here, even in my own neighborhood here in Sterling Heights, which is considered pretty family safe year over year. but you got to keep your finger on the pulse. And the only other thing I would add also is the only thing that kind of hijacked my fatherhood was the technology. I did not always know where my kids were going on the computer. And I can't stress that enough, that you need to know that. You need to know what they're looking at or who they're talking to. And so that'll add another layer of protection. And that's basically it.
Well, Chris, thank you. Great points there. And I think you make a couple that I want to touch upon. One, it starts, of course, in the home, but the neighborhood is the extension of the home. And so I think you were very, very wise to want to get to know your neighbors personally, know who they are, know where they were coming from, who those were that you could really draw close to and even pray the rosary with, like you said. So I think that's very, very important. And one thing with regard to the technology, I mean, this is a temptation, and how do you? It's a tightrope for parents, because here's the thing. Kids, they want their autonomy, first of all, because they're growing into independence, and they have to be allowed to do that. Part of that in our day and age is technology. So they get their phone, they get their computer, they get their tablet, and I think in their minds there's this thing that this is mine, and it's kind of sort of my domain, and you're crossing a line if you want to know what I'm doing with it or where I'm going with it and so forth. But really, that's not the case. I mean, a parent, at least until a child is 18, Debbie, I think you probably could weigh in on this, but you really have to, not helicopter them, but just kind of check in every now and then and say, hey, what's going on? What are you reading? What are you looking at? Who are you communicating with? And just have that conversation, not as an oppressive sort of thing, but just as friendly parenting, like, hey, I want the best for you, so I just want to make sure I'm in the loop and I know what's going on.
Or as a private investigator. I think most of us now as parents, we put on our PI hat and we, have to investigate. But yeah, I agree with you, Chris. It can be that unknown, because you don't know how far they can go, where they can go. It can be very troubling to parents. But I think the more we talk about it, we're raising awareness, and that's important. Thank you so much, Chris, for taking the time and imparting your wisdom to all of us. Have a beautiful rest of your day. I wanted to share something real quickly, Jerry, because we're talking about ways that, it's summertime. Tomorrow we're going to be talking more about summer plans, but, maybe think about going on a pilgrimage, maybe as a family. I mean, it's a great time to just have some spiritual renewal time with your family and to kind of set that mark for your family and start there. You can say, kids, we're going on a pilgrimage, and then from there on, we're going to take our prayer life up. And maybe you would consider going to the Shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament. That's where you can visit the resting place of Mother Angelica. Jerry and I have been there twice. We love it. It is so moving. As a matter of fact, we had quite a few we would consider mini miracles that happened to a lot of the pilgrims that came with us. So it was pretty incredible. And you can tour the EWTN campus, which is just an hour away. And all you have to do is start your Catholic pilgrimage today just by calling 205-271-2966 or go to EWTN.com/pilgrimage. And just by making that decision, you've started your pilgrimage and the miracles could start to flow. So please do that. Take us up on it. I think you'd really enjoy it.
All right, protecting innocent minds and hearts today. Our topic on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Got time enough for a couple more calls at least. And next is Teresa. Kathy, hang on. You'll be right after Teresa in Perrysburg, Ohio on Annunciation Radio. Hi, Teresa. Thanks for calling.
Hi. How you guys doing?
Doing all right, Teresa. How about you?
Good. Wonderful. So first of all, I just want to say that Chris's advice of getting to know your neighbors is such a wonderful piece of advice, and I would encourage that as well. It makes such a huge difference in the life that you're living with your children. But I wanted to bring up that the framework that we're giving our children for dealing with problems that they encounter in the world, it may possibly be more important than we think it is, because it's impossible to be able to keep our kids from experiencing all the horrible things that they could experience, and even things that are out of our control. Like, we don't know what tomorrow's world is going to look like, if there's going to be something that other cultures and other generations have dealt with, like genocide or horrible things like that. You know what I mean? We can't keep our kids. We can keep our kids from a lot of stuff, but we can't keep our kids from all of it. And giving people the framework, our children the framework of, first of all,
a loving family with a husband and wife who are mutually self-sacrificing, and making that a part of your family culture. You see mom and dad sacrifice for each other and sacrifice for the children. I think that foundation is really important. But I had also wondered, I'm a historian, and I had also wondered, throughout all of history, we have these fairy tales that were cultural myths, persistent in all cultures, and a lot of times they're kind of gruesome and kind of terrifying, to read. I would never want my kid to read the real Little Mermaid or the real Cinderella. It's horribly gruesome. But then you think what do all these cultures, why are all these cultures telling their kids gruesome stories? And you kind of think well, I'm going to show them the Disney version and they'll get the gist of it. But I had actually went to a classical education conference, and someone had explained that's fiction is a way of giving children the ability to experience situations without actually having to experience them. So when you see the good in your fairy story juxtaposed against the horrible gruesomeness of the bad, you begin to learn what good feels like, and you begin to learn what evil feels like without actually having to experience it for yourself. And you get an opportunity to kind of wrestle with, I really don't want the bad, and I really like the good, before you go out and experience those feelings in the world. And then when you do happen to experience those feelings in the world, you recognize, this is the same kind of feeling I got. This is kind of a bad feeling. Maybe I shouldn't, proceed in this general direction, or maybe I should tell an adult, or, things like that. But it had never occurred to me that those gruesome fairy stories served a purpose like that.
Right.
So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Well, what I'm hearing is conscience formation is kind of what I'm hearing from what you're describing, Teresa, and I'm sure it's much more than that. But I think this is a good idea. I think, exposing the kids, and we do have a lot of examples of, novels that have been written by Christian and Catholic authors that have conflict in them between good and evil, and parents judiciously can allow their kids to watch those movies or read those books and so forth, and they can be very, very helpful. And Debbie, I don't know if did you ever take that approach with your kids?
I think the thing for me that was very important is the conversation that happens afterwards. The conversation afterwards is so key to what the kids are picking up, what they're learning, and then you can introduce more concepts to them and get them to explore things. Kids do love to converse about things. They're very concrete thinkers, we know that, but they love to converse on it. And it's very interesting to hear what their takeaway is when they are watching certain things. They may be in a whole different frame of mind, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, they're seeing this and it's not going to go well, and they're taking it in a whole different direction. Would you agree with that, Teresa? That with the conversation is very important.
Yeah, and even just among siblings, one sibling might take it an entirely different way than the other sibling.
Right.
And then you start to get a feel for your own children and learn them better.
Yep. Amen. Okay, well, thank you so much for contributing to the show today on Anniversary Week. We so appreciate it. Thank you so very, very much. I know you waited a long time to get on the show, and we're glad we got you on. And Kathy, please forgive us in Buffalo, New York. You can call tomorrow if you want to talk about summer plans, because that's tomorrow's topic. We're talking about what we're doing this summer. And the others that are calling in right now, sorry we're not going to be able to get to you. We are just racing against the clock right now, Jerry. And tomorrow, I'm excited because it's not June 21st yet, which is the official start of summer, but everybody's making summer plans. Everybody's off and running. So we'd love to hear what our listeners are doing this summer.
Yeah, well, you probably get the plans made maybe for months. Maybe it goes back to when it was really cold and you says, we are getting out of here during the summer and going somewhere. Is it going to include your faith? How do you take your faith along? What are your summer plans? We want to recreate. We want to get refreshed, renewed, recharged, but we don't want to leave God behind. So that's a conversation that we're going to have tomorrow on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
You can always email us if we didn't get to you and you have a comment. We'd love to keep the conversation going. You can email us by going to take2@EWTN.com or visit us on our website at take2show.com. But until tomorrow, have a beautiful and blessed day. We'll see you real soon.